You feel like you're putting so much energy into moving forward. You've done all the right things. You've put healthy boundaries in place, created clear goals, maybe doing some inner work, but something keeps derailing you. What if what's sabotaging you is actually a young version of you, stuck in the unconscious, an inner child aspect who feels unloved, unseen, unheard, and unworthy? This is your inner child, and they're not a metaphor. They're real, and they're still here trying to get your attention. In modern psychology, the inner child is generally seen as more of a concept, a metaphor, to help frame and explore and understand childhood emotional wounds. But in my experience, it's more than that. Modalities like internal family systems and ego states therapy see these aspects not as abstract ideas, but as living subpersonalities, each with their own needs, beliefs, and truths. And in my work with clients and in my own personal inner work, I found the same thing. The inner child doesn't just live in memory, it lives in us, in our subconscious, as a presence, alive, emotional, and influencing our entire inner system. These child aspects hold our joy, our wonder, and our innocence, but they also carry our unprocessed pain, fear, shame, rage, and confusion from times when we were too young to make sense of it all. When those big feelings get buried, the child part holding them gets stuck. And depending on the depth of trauma, these unconscious aspects can profoundly shape reactions, habits, and emotional baselines. When I first met one of my own inner children, she was furious with me and I didn't understand why. And when I asked, her answer really took me aback. She said, "I've been sending you distress calls over and over again, and you just keep ignoring them." And in that moment, I realized that uncomfortable feeling I'd get sometimes, that little background sense of unease, was actually her. And it's true, I always ignored it, tried to focus on something else. I've been brushing it off for years. Every one of us carries inner child aspects, some carrying more wounds and trauma than others. And with these wounded parts that we carry at a subconscious level, their pain plays out in real time on the surface, but often in ways that we don't recognize, that we don't connect. They might trigger comfort eating, craving for junk food, or craving for food we know isn't good for us but makes us feel emotionally soothed. Forgetfulness, moments when we've got something important to do and we completely blank out. Or shutting down or feeling overwhelmed with pressure, saying things we regret, even underlying anxiety and depression. And in some moments, they can even take over, like a scared child suddenly grabbing the wheel. I'm sure most of us can remember times when we felt and knew that we were behaving immaturely, but we couldn't help it. It's important to remember that these child aspects are not trying to cause problems. They're just trying to survive. They don't feel safe, and they also don't understand how we've grown and evolved at the surface level. In my book, Retrieving Shadows: A Return to the Heart, I give examples of how inner children can affect us as adults. And I thought I'd share one of those examples now. A young girl was set to have a beautiful party. Her mother had prepared the table with all their most precious dishes, heirlooms overflowing with cakes, sweets, and flowers. The scene looked like it had been set for a princess. Right before the celebration was about to begin, a fight erupted between the parents, and in a fit of rage, the father flipped the table, destroying all the precious items. The situation escalated, and the mother was forced to take her children and walk away, leaving all their belongings behind. As an adult, the woman finds herself struggling with hoarder tendencies. On the surface, she embraces minimalism and cannot understand why she has these overwhelming urges to hang on to objects that she doesn't really want or need. Beneath the surface lurks the frightened little girl, unsupported and holding enormous feelings, who equated the loss of objects with instability, powerlessness, and heartbreak. This is how the inner child operates, not as a memory trapped in the past, but as living energy still shaping our choices, fears, and longing. When we don't realize who's really driving, we keep repeating patterns that the conscious surface part of us wants to overcome. But once we turn inwards and take the time to look and meet those parts of us, everything begins to change. So this inner child part, it doesn't want to be acting against us in the background. It's only doing it because it doesn't know a better way. And because it doesn't understand who we've become on the surface, it is often frightened by our adult plans. What this child really wants, what it's really trying to get, is connection. When these parts feel safe, when they feel heard and seen and understood, they soften. They return to their true essence, that magical, imaginative, intuitive spark that makes us feel alive again. But here's the trap I see time and time again. People connect, maybe in a hypnosis session, in meditation. They reach their inner child and they have a beautiful moment with them, where they see them and they embrace them and offer them love. And it's beautiful. But then life gets busy. The person moves on, gets busy with work and kids and whatever else they have going on in their life. And they rarely even think of the inner child. And so this child part, once again, is abandoned, left behind, forgotten. And when this happens, the damage is worse. Because this part dared to hope, dared to open, to trust again, now more hurt, more guarded, more mistrustful. That's why when I work with clients around inner child aspects, I always recommend a daily connection practice. It doesn't have to be long or involved, just a few minutes every day. I suggest setting an alarm to make sure it's really consistent. These 5 minutes don't have to be highly orchestrated or dramatic in any way. It's just about awareness and focus. Just practice tuning into them. Learn to recognize their energy. You can imagine sitting with them under a tree or anything that felt right. You don't even have to use your imagination. You could focus on your body and sensations while thinking of them. Notice where they turn up. You could also find an object that you could use to represent that child part and bring that object out during these 5-10 minutes that you dedicate to them. The key is consistency and focus. When you show up every day for 30 days, you've rewired your nervous system and you prove to that part that you care, that they're valuable to you, valuable enough for you to spend time tuning into them, holding space for them. And that's when trust begins to rebuild. A month of showing up consistently builds a relationship. You start to recognize their energy, the subtle cues, the shifts in mood, the moments that feel familiar but never made sense before. Maybe even a little voice that pops in. And once you become familiar with those cues, you may not need to continue doing the daily practice. It might become a more organic practice beyond then, where that child aspect is able to reach out and connect with you when needed, because you know what to look for. You know what those feelings mean now. And when those signals arise, you no longer brush them away. You take time to pause, to listen, You make space for what's really going on beneath the surface. And this is so important because as this child part begins to feel seen and cared for, something beautiful happens as they begin to trust. As the relationship grows, they shift from isolation in the unconscious to integration in the heart. And once that connection is made, they no longer have to act out in fear or pain. They're no longer alone with it. They become an ally, a source of joy and wonder and playfulness that weaves naturally through your system. And the more you make room for it, act on that sense of playfulness sometimes, that sense of joy, let it come in, feel it. It brings more to all of you, to the whole you on the surface level. It's also important to remember that their point of view is really valid and valuable. Just as an example, if we were working towards starting a business and that child part, which in the past might have been in the background, trying to make it really hard for you to get that business off the ground, distracting you, making you forget key things, maybe an inability to focus when you need to. Instead, if that child part is heard and we listen to their concerns, what are the concerns? Some of them might be that they don't realize that you on the surface are very capable of managing the responsibilities that will come with this. And it's okay that they don't, because they don't need to. And when we can start having a dialogue and help them to know how to position themselves in terms of something that we're moving towards, there'll be that part that'll say, well, we need to make sure we schedule breaks and we need to have a little bit of room to play and to have fun. And maybe after doing this big stint, let's have a nice, joyful reward. And that's healthy and good. And that's what these child parts can bring to our system when they're integrated into the heart. These child parts no longer have to be the quiet saboteur alone in the background. Now they can step into a new role and become the spark that you've been missing. To anyone who's made it this far, thank you for tuning in. I am going to keep it short this time. At the moment, I have some really cute little chickens that I like to go out and spend time with. That's how I engage with my inner child. I mean, there's so many ways, but that's one of them. My inner child loves playing with these little chickens. I've got them so comfortable with me that they'll jump up on my shoulder and we just play. So, with that, I say from my heart to yours, let's come together and build a future based on the foundation of love.